friends. This is Andrew Phipps, and I certainly invite you to join us today for the Faith, Family, and Freedom broadcast. I posted this some time back, but I thought it would be well to share it with you today. I said I had read journalist George Will's expose about an article that Nicholas Eberhold had written for a quarterly. Mr. Eberhold had done a lot of research, and he wrote about America's exceptionalism and the entitlement life. And just a short amount of statistics caught my attention. For example, in 1963, entitlement transfers were $1 spent per $15 received. Included in this group would be people receiving something monetarily from the government, whether it be food stamps, government assistance of any kind that is received. In 2012, this figure increased from $1 spent to $6 received, from $1 to $15 to $1 to $6 just in a few years. During the same time, the fraction of civilian men aged 25 and above not working quadrupled. His last statement really hit. He said the cost to those who provide for the money may not be as great as it is to those who receive it. The loss of the work ethic, being responsible, and the desire to be productive and making something of one's life and the attitudes and values that go with that may be far greater. For example, we can forget certain things. I mean, we can forget how much money we make or paid or whatever, but there is no such thing as a free lunch. Sometimes the money cost may not be as great as the loss of character and the growing belief that one is entitled to others being responsible for them. For example, the whole idea is that somebody has gotten the idea that there is something that's free. You see, everything that we get in the government is the result of somebody's hard work or somebody else's effort. I wonder what the ratio would be today. I dare say, I would say that for every dollar spent, we have $5 being received. I think there will be a breaking point. I think Adrian Rogers was right when he said you cannot legislate people into some kind of prosperity or well-being. I mean, you can try to promote equity, the idea that everybody ends up at the same time, at the same place, everybody gets the same all you want to, but that's unbridled socialism. Eventually, you run out of other people's money. And it promotes mediocrity. This nation was built upon the concept of work, the work ethic, the idea that men ought to be productive, that we ought to contribute, that we should all be a part of the society. It's not somebody's job to take care of me and be on the lookout and work for my security. Now, we recognize that in a Christian society, as we used to consider ourselves, that we provide for those that are not able to work physically or maybe due to other issues cannot perform. I know in the Bible we are commanded to take care of the widows that are widows indeed. In other words, where families are not taking care of the widows or don't have, she doesn't have other relatives, then the church has stepped in. I think Americans are very philanthropic. We give several $100 million per day for charitable causes. That's a great feature of the American system when you think about that we have a generous spirit. We want to be helpful. I mean, when there's a flood, a tsunami, earthquake, devastation, we have people that are right there to help out, whether it's church groups, or whether it's people working through agencies, maybe to Samaritan's Purse, the Red Cross, and others that we could identify that want to be there and help alleviate the suffering and the devastation. But for the general public, the idea that we don't have to do anything but just receive. That's not biblical. I believe it was the Apostle Paul who said that if a man doesn't work, he shouldn't eat. Governor John Smith not governor, but John Smith was recorded as saying, I think by Governor Winthrop, that at the first Plymouth plantation there, 1619, there in Massachusetts, that he issued a decree that if you weren't going to work, you weren't going to be eating. Well, unfortunately, that's pretty drastic, but it seemed to work. I think that Condoleezza Rice said that if you get to thinking that you have been somehow aggrieved or that you have been victimized, then you'll get to thinking that you are entitled. And I believe that's a concept that's unfortunately too popular today. Friends, I thank you again for being with us today. We try to take topics that hopefully might be beneficial. We try to include things in our programs that have a variety that would keep your interest. Today we're talking about entitlements, and I think that ever since 1964, with what was then called the War on Poverty, you know, the Lord said that we would have the poor with us always. And I think that when we think about it, we realize that in our kind of system, we're not going to have an equality of results. We ought to have freedom of choices. The Statue of Liberty is simply that. It's not the statue of equality. I believe those who think they can vote for the candidate who promises them the most from the public treasury are doing themselves and our nation a great disservice. And the political party that embraces that philosophy is on a very wrong path. It has been tried in other times and other areas in other nations. It simply does not work. We need to allow people freedom. The freedom of choices, the choices of where they will work, the choices of what they want to do with their lives, what kind of work they want to do. Every job, so to speak, is important. We sometimes classify jobs, but everything that helps us to have a society is an important job. That is, as long as it's moral. But we're talking today about the whole idea of something for nothing. I think that we have to realize that it's been foretold many times by others that you can't just legislate people into some kind of prosperity. We can't just say, well, we're going to pass a bill and everybody's going to have the same amount of money. And we've had a lot of false disguises, like many states have tried the lottery, thinking that it was going to take care of the school system well. It didn't happen. And, the tax on the poor, we can call it the lottery. There are many ways to tax, and unfortunately, we seem to do that well, but we cannot get to the point where that people are working most of the year for the government. We see that in the neighboring country of Canada, where I think it's about mid-July before you actually are working for yourselves if you take away all of the tax burdens that are imposed upon the citizens there. And I think our country is headed in the same direction because it seems appealing. It seems like it's a good thing to be able to receive and not to have to do something to earn it. You know, we are taught the idea of rewards even in our Christian service, that we're saved not by our good works, but we're saved unto to good works. We're to do something. Life was never meant just for people to have nothing to do. We ought to be passionate. We ought to have a resolve to do something. Be good members of our church. Be contributing members. Don't allow just one person or a small group to carry the burden of the church. Each person ought to be a contributor. They ought to be more than just a spectator. And I think in society itself, we see that. I think by people working harmoniously, we can see good results. We can see a good standard of living. But I tell you, when we start thinking like third world countries, to where that we're going to refuse common sense and try to mandate just situations like we've seen it with our oil producing and closing up areas that should be drilled and explored. I think it just violates common sense, and then we have to depend upon other nations. All of this is part of the society in which we find ourselves. We want to be able to practice our faith, to go into the houses of worship without mandates, without people telling us if we can assemble or under what conditions, and trying to impose fines and trying to impose penalties for if we sing or whatever, like we've seen maybe there in California and other churches, not just California, but others. And the whole idea of entitlements means more government control, more government, not less. When you give the government the authority, and I've said it before, you could put the federal government in charge of the Sahara Desert, and it wouldn't be long until there would be a shortage of sand. And we'll say more about this in the next segment.
They sat down for supper in their quiet little house, looked at one another. What was God doing now? Times were hard, and debts must be paid. Where was God? So little food on their plates. Then the daddy broke his silence, and the kids just listened in. He said, when I face a challenge, feel like giving in, I go back to my favorite memory, to be exact. It happened here in Galilee, when my mama woke me up and said that we were going out to hear a man named Jesus on a hill outside of town. You see, I'd often heard of miracles, but never witnessed one until I was watching the impossible. Saw those baskets filled with so much food. There were faces full of joy, how my faith grew. That day is just a bore. So children, learn this lesson. Listen to your dad. Miracles can happen when you give God all you have. Then when you're weak, draw strength from that day when you met your need. And He multiplied your faith. Like when my mama walked me out and said that we were going out to hear a man named Jesus on a hill outside of town. We listened to his sermon, people needed fed. I handed him my lunch, you know the rest. So no matter how hard life may get, just remember the fish. Oh, don't forget what he did. Just remember the fish.
The weather is heating up, and so are the deals. It's time for spring specials at Sam Pierce Chevrolet in Daleville. Lease a new Chevy Equinox LS for only $159 a month, or lease a new Chevy Blazer for just $269 per month. Save thousands on nearly 200 pre-owned vehicles in stock, all with the warranty and complimentary maintenance. Hurry, once these vehicles are gone, so are the special prices. Don't miss out on the spring specials, only at Sam Pierce Chevrolet. The best Chevy deals are in the country.
If you'd like to have any of our products, we do have a Faith, Family, and Freedom handbook. We have some DVDs. We did one with Pastor Jim Scudder in Washington, D.C. a little over a year ago. It's called Can You Find God in D.C.? I think you will enjoy the beautiful programming that was done in the Jefferson and Lincoln Memorials and other places. If you want any of our products, just call us or get in touch with us as would be indicated there on the screen.
It's time to plan for the 47th Annual Southern Gospel Singing at Sea Cruise. Join Andrew and Shirlene Phipps as you depart from Port Canaveral for the trip, January 30th through February 3rd, 2023, for warm sunshine and tropical breezes in the Caribbean. With 30 of the top Southern Gospel groups in the nation, you will be entertained and you'll be inspired by the best in Southern Gospel preaching. Dine on delicious foods, see the sights, and bask in the warm glow of Christian fellowship on the world's largest all-Christian cruise to the Bahamas. Hurry, because this trip of a lifetime sells out fast. All that is needed now is a small deposit, and you can continue to pay over time. For more information, call Andrew Phipps at 765-744-4239.
Well, as we come to this segment today, again, I appreciate your helpfulness, your enthusiasm. Thank you for being supportive, and thank you for telling others about our program. We try to cover a variety of topics, whether they be social, economic, or political. I speak around the country. I travel as an evangelist. But I also, in our Faith, Family, and Freedom broadcast, I want to give you some also teaching materials or background that would help us all. And I think we need to be well-rounded. We need to be balanced in our approach to life, because those of us that have families, we have obligations to our family. Our obligation is to provide for our families. If a person doesn't provide for his own, the Bible said that he's worse than an infidel and that he's having denied the faith. I think today that we just need families, and we need a government that's aware of the fact that, families make the society, and by us wanting to do something that's worthwhile, I think we were supposed to work. In the garden, God told the man that he would make his living by the sweat of his brow. There were certain things there. One put upon the woman, Eve, one upon the man, Adam, and the serpent. God even cursed the ground, said it would bear thorns and thistles. Well, I'm glad, on the other hand today, that salvation is a gift. It's the gift of God. We don't have to work it out. We couldn't in a billion years get worthy of the grace of God. God commendeth his love toward us, and that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. I like that verse. Zig Ziglar, I shared this with him one time, or he shared it with me. Simple verse. And he said, write your name in up there. And it was John 3:16. I never will forget it. And we had met in Washington, D.C., and he asked people to do that. When he would give them a Bible, he would say, put your name up there, where it says, for God so loved the world that whosoever. He wanted you to put your name right there in that whosoever. I'm glad that I'm a part of the whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. What a wonderful proclamation. What a wonderful salvation. And it's all because of his marvelous grace. Grace doing for us what we can't do for ourselves, that we never would merit it, never would we be worthy of it, but this is the reason that God came in the flesh. Jesus Christ went to an old rugged cross, bore in his body our sins on the tree that we could have life and have it more abundantly. That ought to make each one of us happy today. And I think if you know Christ and a free pardon of sin, it'll put you in a rejoicing mood too. I like to go to church where I can feel the presence of God, where I can feel the precious Holy Spirit. And I believe today that that's so needful. Without the Spirit of God, everything is vain. All is vain unless the Spirit of the Holy One come down. Brethren, pray that holy manna will be showered all around. In these moments today, as we've talked about entitlements and things that seemingly have developed and on a very progressive scale in just the last year or so. We're having proposals now put forth that basically go against all biblical doctrine, goes against common sense, goes against the idea of having having private ownership of property that allows people to make choices and invest and choose their own way of making a living, of whether they be farmers or retailers or whether they be professional people. And we need all those people. We need everybody. We need the hairdresser. We need the barber. We need the mechanic. I think we need everyone. Each one has a place to do. I think God gives us certain abilities, and it's each one of us up to us. Someone said this, and I think it's good. They said, God will provide the fishing, but it's up to me and you to dig the bait. And I think this idea that we're going to just sit by and allow others to be responsible for us, that is a huge mistake, and it's going to bring us great harm. Even there in Egypt, when Joseph came to prominence, in the dreams he saw that there'd be 7 years of drought and then 7 years of plenty. And they had to get ready for that. And Joseph was able to be such a friend to his brethren. And he made himself known to them after their coming to him, I think, on the first occasion. And Joseph, he was smitten and so on. He was put into the pit. He was put into a place of bondage. But he, as a typification of Christ, forgave his brethren. And I'm glad that's what God did for us. I hope you've enjoyed it. We look forward to being with you the next time, and this is your friend, Andrew Phipps.
Phipps Faith, Family, and Freedom, presented by Clemens Home Solutions and Heritage Funeral Care.